Every team needs a frontliner, a fighter that looks their enemy straight in the eyes while being right in their face, knowing that the rest of the team is safe behind and can do their thing. They have a big task on their hands though. They need to make sure that they draw all the enemy's attention because they're the only one trained to tank as many hits as possible. It's not easy though, as they live with a big burden on their shoulders. If the frontliner dies, everyone dies too, and it's game over. Can you function well on the battlefield knowing your performance will decide everything? Simultaneously, they need to make sure their own hits are a force to be reckoned with, using some of the deadliest, biggest weapons that can decimate enemies. They have the strength to wield and use these weapons, making them some of the most lethal fighters in existence, hence the name of their class. In this video we will go over how to be an overpowered fighter at every level, and we're not going to go pure fighter, we're going to dip one level in another class to make our fighter an even better fighter. The idea that stems from tabletop that fighters are exceptional early game but fall off late game is a thing of the past and completely irrelevant in Baldur's Gate 3. Today you will see why. And trust me, fighter is one of the strongest classes in the game when you spec them correctly. Let's start off with level 1. At level 1 we take fighter. Obviously, as a fighter our fighting style is going to be great weapon fighting. We're going to be utilizing massive two-handed great swords at all times throughout your adventure to make sure our presence on the battlefield is known. The last thing we want as a fighter is to use an impressive weapon, attack our enemy with it, and publicly be embarrassed because we do no damage with it whatsoever. So the rerolling of 1s and 2s with our damage die is a godsend for that purpose. For our abilities, we're going to go all out on strength. It is our most important ability. Our hits scale with strength, so get it all the way to 17 through giving it the +2 bonus. Second most important ability is going to be constitution. It's going to make us tanky, and we want that as a tank as well. Give it the +1 bonus. Now dexterity is also going to be important for us, even though we will be using heavy armor mostly, so its armor class increases for medium armor are not that relevant, but that initiative though. At 14 dexterity we get a +2 to our initiative, and this helps out tremendously with the concept of having maximum presence on the battlefield. See, you don't want to be a slowpoke and be the last person to have a turn every turn when your entire team is already dead and rotting away as the frontliner. So yes, we are getting 14 dexterity on a strength character. It is really good. And those are, in my opinion, also the 3 best abilities for this build in the order that they have been presented in. Lae'zel is an amazing option to make her your frontliner. Her race, Githyanki, is amazing and her raw attitude is exactly what we need. But if you want your main character to be a fighter, I still would recommend a Githyanki as your starting race. Misty Step that you get at level 5 as a Githyanki is amazing for a frontliner. The fact you just randomly teleport next to your target on a bonus action is really good. The Githyanki jump is also nuts if you cast it preemptively, especially with a feat that it will be taking for this build. It gives you some insane mobility. Githyanki also get proficiency in any skill they want at will, essentially with a mere finger snap, and you can change it up accordingly every long rest, which makes astral knowledge in itself an absolute god tier ability as well. If you thought that wasn't enough, Githyanki also gets gear and weapons that specifically gives a bonus to them that are actually really good for a fighter build as well. However, if you are a hater of some sorts and contribute to the Githyanki's low popularity on this graph, and I don't know why, because Githyankis are really good and they look so good as well, you don't want to roleplay as the Grinch, what is wrong with you? But if you don't want to, nobody can force you. Then I would recommend you to be a half-orc, which is an absolute amazing race as well for this build, and archetype. 2 words, relentless endurance, and 2 more words, savage attacker. One makes you the Terminator and the other makes your damage output even better. Great futures to have. Now that you know everything you need to know for level 1 or character creation, it is time to go to level 2. And level 2 gives us a really nice present. Action Surge. This thing right here is why so many builds, even non-martial builds or people that completely hate fighter, still get 2 levels in fighter. Just to get this thing right here. Activating it means you get another action and it replenishes every short rest. So for a fighter, for example, that gets 3 base attacks at level 11, after using Action Surge you now have 6 attacks. So essentially it's like having 2 turns within the same turn instead of just 1 turn. At level 3 we pick our subclass, and with this build I'm going to be a battle master. Just fits the idea of giving us complete control over the battlefield the best. Because what I want with this build is to 1. Have complete control over the battlefield, maximize your presence, have great damage output, and be a tank all at the same time. And battle master gives us a plethora of useful types of attacks that we definitely want to utilize to the maximum. For our maneuvers, first of all, we take disarming attack. This type of attack is really good, especially early on when you don't yet have extra attacks, because with this ability you can disarm like a tough enemy or a mini boss, so they drop their weapon. You then accordingly yoink their weapon and sell it later for some gold at some shady aftermarket if it's bad. And if they completely rely on that weapon for damage, it essentially kills off your enemies with 1 hit, even if they still have a bunch of HP. Game over thanks to disarming attack. And it's funny as well because the disarmed enemy just becomes a statue. You can infinitely keep skipping turns and nothing will happen, obviously till you put them out of their misery. Second attack, we're going to get pushing attack. As the name implies, you can push things with it while attacking. Enemy is standing near a cliff, next to a chasm, or any deep place really that makes you rub your hands and start evil laughing. This is exactly what you want to use it for. And unlike shove, even if it fails, it still does something very useful. It still deals damage and extra damage as well, because not just this maneuver, but all maneuvers will make you roll an additional die for your damage to make your damage output even better, which makes them so good either way. And yes, this attack also works on big bosses. Just make sure they're positioned next to a chasm to instantly kill them. For our third maneuver, we're going to get riposte. Riposte is really good. It is a reaction to whenever an enemy misses their attack on you, so it activates on your enemy's turn, making your overall presence on the battlefield even more known, and logically makes your damage output even more dynamic. It hits very hard as it gets the additional damage from using a maneuver, and it's especially nice versus enemies with certain conditions that might make it more annoying to attack them on your own turn, like invisibility for example, as you just obliterate them in retaliation for them having the audacity trying to touch you. At level 4 we get to pick a feat, and you already know what we're going to take, right? We're going to take Athlete. Athlete will make our 17 strength transform into 18 strength. So we just become stronger and get all the benefits from reaching the next even level for our most important ability. However, Athlete also gives you some very useful side effects. For example, if your character is prone, it will make it cost a lot less movement to remove the prone debuff on you. But what is even better, and really insane actually, is that 50% increase to our jump. With this we go from having presence at like one little area on the battlefield to having presence everywhere at any time. This is peak anime, peak main character syndrome. Just jump from one side of the battlefield to another side on the battlefield, tune in some epic heroic music in the background and save your teammates and destroy everything harassing them. Even if your fighter isn't the face of your party, the side character becomes the main character with your jump being enhanced like this. Keep in mind, jump is also a bonus action, so you can always use it in conjunction with your actual attacks, making Athlete honestly a S+ tier feat easily for a fighter. It also stacks by the way with enhanced sleep or the Yankee special jump that I talked about earlier. You can literally just jump across the entire world with this thing if you use this synergy. It's hilarious and highly effective. Just make sure to cast your triple jump buff preemptively before you enter combat, and you'll have this type of mobility active up to 10 turns. And now again, you know why I went with the Githyanki. Least picked race? Is this actual data, or was it made by some anti-Githyanki propagandist? That is the real $1 million question. To find out the answer to that question, stay tuned, because we will do a deep dive into how this data was collected later on in this video. No, we will not. At level 5, something huge happens for us fighters. We will be blessed with the forbidden knowledge of how to swing your sword. Wait for it, twice in combat instead of just once. Yes, you heard that right, we get an extra attack every single turn at level 5. Level 5 is huge for a fighter. When you reach it, you will feel a tremendous increase in your power. At level 6, we then get to choose another feat. Fighters get 4 feats to choose from, unlike a lot of the other peasant classes that only get 3 feats, so that is another bonus. We're going to go with Great Weapon Master right here, a no-brainer really. Just a really good feat, because it basically gives you a +10 huge bonus to your damage output for every attack at the expense of a +5 penalty to your attack roll. That is obviously huge when you can attack like 6 times a turn, and it's even better when you have the capabilities, which a fighter has, to offset that penalty as much as possible. because we're going to make sure that our attack roll, and with that the chance for us to actually hit our opponent, is as high as possible by utilizing advantage in various forms and just having a high proficiency in strength. So Great Weapon Master is an amazing feat to pick, and it also gives you the chance to use another attack as a bonus action when you critically hit or kill a monster in that turn, so raising your damage output even more. At level 7 we get 2 more maneuvers, and here I definitely would go with Trip Attack and Menacing Attack. Both are really good. Menacing Attack gives us great CC in the form of it applying the Frightened status effect on our enemies, and that basically means they will attack with disadvantage for their next attacks and can't move. So 1, they can't move towards your team, and 2, essentially have to stick onto attacking the tank, you as a fighter, with disadvantage. Just overall a really good maneuver. Trip Attack is then also amazing, easily one of the best maneuvers, especially for if you have Great Weapon Master and more than just 1 attack per turn, which conveniently totally random we just got in the previous 2 levels, so it is a really good moment to pick it up right here. Trip Attack will make your enemies prone so they fall on the ground, and then accordingly need to waste a lot of movement trying to get up when it's their turn. However, it's especially good because prone gives you advantage for the remainder of your entire turn and everything else that attacks the prone target until it's their turn. In the case of a fighter that has multiple attacks, that means you can Trip Attack and go all out afterwards with a bunch of different attacks that will all attack with advantage, and the Great Weapon Master bonus to your damage output while offsetting the penalty of Great Weapon Master because you are attacking with advantage. So all of that means you can just completely annihilate a certain enemy in just 1 turn if you just make sure to start off the turn with a successful Trip Attack. What you also need to make sure of is to give this video a like and to subscribe to me right now if you haven't yet. That is also a very important thing to do. It is easy and free, so why wouldn't you? At level 8 we get to pick another feat, and we're going to go with Ability Improvement and get the final 2 points in strength to reach a level of 20. Now, even though we reached the Ability Improvement maximum of 20 strength, you can get it all the way up to 24 strength permanently to make you even more powerful. In Act 2 I would highly recommend you to get the Potion of Everlasting Vigor, which grants you a permanent bonus of +2 strength if you drink it. In Act 3 I would recommend you to use the Mirror of Loss to get another +2 to your strength, bringing you to a total of 24 strength. Level 9, you get Indomitable at level 9, which is a nice defensive ability to have. You can reroll a failed saving throw every long rest with it, which can come in very clutch because the effect you failed the saving throw against could have very well otherwise ruined your day. Level 10, we get to pick 2 more maneuvers. Now at this point in time I definitely do think that we already have the 5 best maneuvers, hence why we got them as soon as possible at the lower levels, but I would also recommend to get Fainting Attack, which is a guaranteed attack with advantage that hits really hard. It being a guaranteed way to attack with advantage means we have another tool to offset Great Weapon Master's -5 attack roll penalty, which is great for when we absolutely want to make sure that we get the hit in. Our die at level 10 also get more sides and are now able to roll up to 10 damage, so these type of attacks will now on average hit even harder, which is why it's a good moment to take Fainting Attack as well. For your final maneuver, you can really take anything you like the sound of. I personally just go for Rally here, as in terms of damage options and CC we already have everything really. Rally heals and gives one of our allies extra temporary hit points, and it's nice because you can also use it on downed allies, meaning you can bring them back into combat from a distance. With Rally we then have our full set of maneuvers complete, and I've tried pretty much all maneuvers in the game, including the ones that have not made the cut and aren't in this video, and I do definitely think this selection and these 7 together is probably the best selection and really gives us everything we need and grants you great power and utility. The order we then take them in is also great because they are taking at phases in the game where they start shining the most based on my experience. Level 11. At level 11 we get some more forbidden knowledge. Remember when we learned how to swing our sword twice every turn? Well, now we have been truly blessed because we can swing our sword 3 times in a single turn going forward. Yes, we get another extra attack, making level 11 an amazing level to look forward to. Now for level 12 you can go full fighter, and if you do so I would recommend getting either the alert feat for more initiative or savage attacker for some more damage per turn. However, in my opinion it's best to start multi-classing for that final level and dip 1 level into cleric. I would strongly recommend you then to pick the war domain, because the war domain is going to give us a total of 3 attacks for our bonus actions every long rest. These extra attacks come in the form of War Priest charges, which you can use after hitting your enemy at least once with your weapon in a turn. So in other words, the War Domain makes a lot of sense for a fighter, as we will hit our enemies a lot with our weapons, and the build captivates the idea of attacking as much as possible in a single turn. Which, by the way, makes this build also an excellent build for solo play. You also get these two useful spells for free if you go the War Domain Cleric route. One gives you extra armor class, while the other gives you extra damage. Next to the domain specific features, you also get a few useful cantrips. For cantrips, definitely take Blade Ward and Resistance for extra defense, and Tamadachi for that advantage on Charisma related ability checks, which can come in very clutch actually, as we haven't invested in Charisma or anything. If you don't have like a Cleric or Druid in your party with Guidance however, then I would recommend you to swap out Resistance for Guidance. You also get the possibility to choose one of the Cleric spells, and there's a really good spell in there that fits the idea of this build and the direction that I'm personally going with perfectly. Sanctuary. Sanctuary is really good. It's a spell that you can use through a bonus action, and it makes whatever you use it on invulnerable for up to 10 turns. So basically it makes whatever you target have like a guardian angel, and can be insanely good if you use it to stall time or to make sure an ally of yours is safe and isn't targeted, and can for example safely move away from the enemies to get in a better spot. Really good spell that just really fits my goal for this build and the idea behind it, so I definitely recommend you to take it. And with that, we have now fully discussed all 12 levels. We have done it, guys. It is time for a party. But first, we also need to go over gear, because there are definitely great options here that will enhance your experience as a fighter even more, even though you are already very powerful just through making the right choices in the leveling menu. For your rings, I would recommend Killer's Sweetheart for your first ring to make us even more deadly with getting guaranteed crits every long rest. For your other ring, I'm going to go with Caustic Band to make each attack have some extra additional damage, which is really good with how many attacks we have per turn. For Amulet, I'm going to go with the Amulet of Greater Health. Honestly, all that extra HP you get from just putting this on is really nice as a tank. For the Cloak, I'm going to go with Flesh Melter Cloak, really good as a tank, as we will also damage our enemies on their turn, and that can sometimes just kill them off entirely one turn earlier. For Chest Armor, I'm going to recommend the Helldusk Armor. It provides you a variety of useful effects, including giving enemies the burning status effect depending on certain conditions and taking less damage yourself. For gauntlets, I'm going to go with the gauntlets of the War Master. The fact that it makes us much more likely to apply the deadly effects of our maneuvers, which we do use extensively on our enemies, is just too good. For boots, as a Githyanki or Lae'zel, I recommend the boots of Psionic Movement. Having extra damage after using Fly and getting Fly as an extra ability are just two nice effects to have. Otherwise, if you're not a Githyanki, I would just recommend using something like the boots of Genial Striding. The fact that annoying ground effects that reduce your movement won't affect you anymore with these boots is really nice. For your helm, I'm going to be recommending the Helm of Baldur, easily the best helm in the game for a tank. However, you do get it pretty late, so earlier in your playthrough, I would recommend getting the Grimskill Helm, which you can get as early as Act 1. For your two-hander, there's great news for a fighter, as you can get the Everburn Blade within like 5 minutes of a new adventure. This weapon will last you a long time. When you progress a bit in the game and get to like late Act 1 or Act 2, you can replace it with the Sword of Justice, but ultimately you definitely want to get the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane. This sword in itself is enough reason to roll a Githyanki, because you get a nice weapon damage bonus as one, and it has also a variety of insane defensive and sustain related effects for a Githyanki. Then if that wasn't enough, it is also a +3 two-handed greatsword as well, and it gives you the insane Soul Breaker attack that you can use every short rest, which deals additional damage and can in fact stun your enemies as well, and stun is definitely one of the best CC abilities in the game. If you didn't roll a Githyanki, then alternatively your best bet is going to be the Baldur's Giant Slayer. Now, I would say that the inclusion of a bow for this build is completely optional, and if you don't like the idea of your tank, your fighter using a bow, you can completely omit it. However, a really nice bow in the game that does synergize very well with the rest of my build is going to be the Gaunter Mail. It is just an insane bow that has the ability to apply advantage for our next attacks from a distance through the Promised Victory passive, and it also has great synergy with our build by giving us the ability to apply haste to ourselves. Haste, as you know, gives you an extra action, and the version on this bow gives it up to 5 turns. So that pairs up very well with the rest of our build, where we already have the capability to attack so many times. So it supports the idea of the build really well. But like I said, the bow is completely optional. Without using the bow, you already have such an insane damage output. Trying to avoid spoilers here, but you can completely annihilate main story bosses with this build like it's nothing. Just attacking them so many times in succession with a variety of utility incorporated in set attacks through our feats, our gear, and most importantly our subclass and class. Fighter is really good in Baldur's Gate 3, it's easily a S+ tier class, and after watching this video, you now know how to go on your own rampage. But more importantly, you now have all the knowledge to, at the end of the day, make sure you commit to the cause and take your responsibility as the frontliner in making sure your team will pull through and succeed in everything you do.